What would it be like to be a sake professional? You know, the Japanese alcoholic drink, sake? Yeah, that's the one. Well, we are going to dive into that world of sake by way of this fantastic guest. Her name is Rebekah Wilson-Lye, and she is a sake expert, not only within Japan, but I would reckon at this point, globally speaking as well. And we get into the world of sake as far as, how it's made, what it is, what it represents culturally speaking. We also get into her roles, how she built a career out of this intense interest and passion towards this drink. And also, too, this is probably the most interesting point for me, and I think for a lot of listeners, is her journey. How it started, how she just got interested in this product, and how that curiosity, that drive to learn more about it, really amounted to, once again, this fantastic career. Now, really quickly, there's only so much I can jam into these YouTube videos. So as always, I would encourage you to check out the full-length audio version, the podcast version. You can do so wherever you access your podcast. Just do that search for Life as a ... All right, well, I think it's about time to get into it. So why don't we? Now, to get things started, as I just mentioned in the intro, I think a big takeaway from this talk was this notion of pursuing passion, pursuing a curiosity towards something and turning it into a career. And I think that is what a lot of people can learn from. You might have your own thing, whatever it might be, but you just don't know how to go about turning that into an actual career. Well, you might get some hints from this. And here's Rebekah speaking to that point.
Yeah, by pursuing my curiosity and finding something that I was really passionate about, and that sort of being the driving force, not because I have to do this or I have to do that. It was more just the curiosity and desire to learn allowed me to go into directions I would never, ever have chosen consciously myself.
Okay, to get things kickstarted here, the sensible thing to do would probably give you a primer on sake itself. So here's Rebekah explaining some of the distinctions of this unique drink.
The word sake, or sake as it's often mispronounced in the West, is used in Japan to refer to alcoholic beverages in general, right? So that's wine, beer, whiskey, whatever, including sake. Because once upon a time, there was only one sake in Japan. But after, the major revolution and Japan opened its borders to the world and Western-style alcohol beverages were imported in the 19th century, things got a little bit confusing. Now there are lots of sakes, right? So in order to differentiate things, sake is officially defined as seishu, or a clear, refined sake, but is more commonly referred to as nihonshu, or the traditional alcoholic beverage of Japan.
Well, this next clip represents a pivotal moment early on within Rebekah's journey into the world of sake. And here she describes a moment in which she was at a welcome party for herself. She'd been in Japan for all of 1 week at this point, and she was introduced to this top flight sake. And quite honestly, this moment is what led her to exploring the country, exploring the product further, and obviously, leading into this wonderful career that she's carved out for herself.
I remember it so vividly. It was really like my eureka moment, my hallelujah moment. I brought the glass to my mouth and I was just immediately struck by these wonderful ethereal notes of cantaloupe, melon, apple, banana.
Oh,
white
you remember
peach.
all this.
Yeah. It was just, I was like, I thought this was made from rice. And then I drank it and it had the most incredible, and it was crystal clear, like crystal white, the most purest crystalline water almost. And I drank it, and there was some, the lovely fruit notes continued on the palate, but then it just kind of like melted into my palate. And there's this really refined acidity and this delicate umaminess, and then it just so clean, and I was like, oh, what was that? That was amazing.
I'll have another.
And I was like, I can't believe this is made from rice.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh yeah. And I said, what is it? And they're like, oh, it's juzake. No, another new word. I mean, I'd been in Japan for all of a week. I knew nothing. I was like, well, what's that? And they were like, oh, it's local sake. So the sake that they'd bought me was a locally produced Shizuoka sake.
Okay.
It's like no welcome to Japan thing. And actually, I mean, they told me the name, I didn't know what it meant. It wasn't until years later that I went, oh my gosh, the sake that they served me is one of the most famous sakes in Japan. So I kind of started at the top shelf, which is pretty lucky.
Next up, here's a clip in which Rebekah is describing this moment of clarity she had along the way. This is before she started her career, before she'd really sunk herself into the professional world of sake. But here at this point, she's realizing her place within it and what she could begin to create. I think, again, it's a really powerful moment. So I want everyone to have a look at this.
So when I was out, I was realizing that at an izakaya, like this is back in 2010, so this is, over 10 years ago, I looked around myself at the counter of the most famous sake izakaya in Japan. And not only was I, of course, the only foreigner, that was a given, I was the only female, I was the only person under 40, and I was probably the only person that had my own natural teeth. Wow. It was pretty old man centric. And I was like, I really wanted more women and more diverse people in my sake world. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that I had this, I could engage people and make sake and kind of express to the aspirational qualities of sake. And the delicious qualities of sake and the potential of sake without defining too much what it is so that they could explore it.
All right, well, fast forwarding a little bit within this conversation to the present day, this is at a point in which Rebekah is now working for Japan Craft Sake. She's also heading up one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Japan Craft Sake event in the world. She's also handling PR and marketing duties. She's describing at this point, the challenges and opportunities of this world of sake.
Because of the aging population and because of systemic failures within the sake industry as a whole to connect sake with a new generation, right? And so there's this increasingly shrinking consumer base domestically. And also, I mean, before, World War II, I think there was something like 3,000 or something breweries. Now 5,000 breweries. Now there are roughly 1,300, and not all of those are actually sake producers that make a product like we know it. There can be contract breweries that just supply a base product to a mass mega maker that mixes all up together in a tank, or a brewery that has got its license but has gone bankrupt and doesn't make any sake anymore. So. And then with each of those breweries, they make, I would say, like on average 6 sake per brewery. So 6 sake per brewery, sometimes a lot more, times 1,000. Now look at how much variety you've got on the market, and the market's shrinking. There's no market for that diversity. The diversity is overseas.
Now, if you've been enjoying this conversation, I do encourage you to check out this last clip. Here, Rebekah is describing what the sake industry needs to continue to thrive, to continue to grow. So have a listen here, and you might just find a way of fitting yourself into it all.
And what we need in the sake industry, looking around, is we need way more diversity. But I'm not just talking about people, I'm talking about skill sets. We need people that have got marketing backgrounds. We need people who've got IT backgrounds. We need people who've got logistics backgrounds, people in refrigeration experts. We need more people to come in and help to innovate and further push the industry forward.
Well, we are drawing to a close within this conversation, but as always, I encourage you to check out the full-length audio version. You can do so wherever you access your podcast. Just do that search for Life as a ... There, you are going to find a lot more detail on the world of sake, on the professional duties, on the professional opportunities that do exist, that do abound within this burgeoning space. And as always, it's kind of the awkward point in the conversation. I would encourage a like or subscribe. It's the best way to let this YouTube algorithm know that the content matters. Having said all that, please stay tuned for the next episode of Life, as it'll be coming at you right next week. So don't miss it.